Chapter 1. The man who wouldn't stay dead, in the shadowy depths of a dark closet, an alien magician, Fred Alexander, king of the earth and emperor of the universe, awakens. Naked, confused, and definitely not dead. It was one day after a forgotten night at the pub he found himself trapped by an unknown assailant intent on disposing of him. But death is merely an inconvenience for Fred, whose bizarre affliction grants him the ability to rise again. I must have been really drunk to be like this. He thought and wondered if he'd done anything stupid. Being naked, it would look a little odd to just stroll outside, but he must at least try, so try he did. Fred, being an enchanter, tried to leave using magic without opening the door, but he could not get through the door or walls, and they resisted all his efforts. Realizing someone had cast an entrapment spell on it, and it wasn't one of his own kind, it was more likely a human who had found a spell book. It was clumsy but effective. Fred realized this was a trap that he couldn't escape. Fred saw blood on the floor. It was his blood. This confused and scared him. Fred looked at himself. He was unharmed. He thought he must have died, and unlike the rest of his kind, his body healed itself. After he died, it had returned him to life. Suddenly a man with a butcher's knife opened the door of the cupboard, expecting to see a corpse. In the room behind him was a table of tools to cut up the corpse and dispose of it. The man was looking at him and was confused and very angry.
"You're not dead?" the man said.
"No," said Fred nervously.
The man stabbed Fred in the heart, and the bleeding Fred dropped to the ground dead once more. The killer closed the door to let him bleed out as he washed his bloody hands and the knife. He then made a coffee and sat for a while. Later, the killer came back, sure his victim would have bled out and so wouldn't make too much mess. He opened the door, looking at the floor to see a lot of blood in his victim's feet.
"What?" said the killer, looking up.
"I'm still here," Fred said nervously.
"What are you?" asked the killer.
Not dead," Fred said nervously.
"I'll fix that," said the man, killing Fred again, stabbing him in the guts.
Leaving him to die again, angrily slamming the door. He came back a while later with an axe.
Talking to the door, he said, "If you're not dead, you'll wish you were," said the killer to the door.
Before he opened it, expecting to find his victim alive again. He looked inside and found Fred lying bled to death on the floor. So with effort, the killer picked up the tall, slippery, bloody corpse out of the cupboard. He put him on the table and prepared to cut up the body. The killer raised and swung the axe over the neck of the corpse. It didn't hit the corpse's neck, it hit something else. The confused killer tried again, but it stopped again.
"What's going on here?" said the killer, frustrated.
The thing that stopped the axe appeared. It was made of metal and had a wooden handle. It was a scythe.
"What?" said the shocked killer, seeing a stranger dressed in a black robe. "Are you here to take him?"
"No," said the Reaper. "Why did you kill him?"
"He was the leader of an alien hive," said the killer.
"Leader of what? Does that look like a queen to you?" said the Reaper, pointing at the corpse.
The killer looked at the blood-stained body. It was obviously male.
"No," said the killer. "He was a king and emperor to the hive."
"Isn't that the same thing, an emperor and king?" said the Reaper pedantically.
"Not in his case. They called him the emperor of the universe and the king of the earth," said the killer.
"Oh, so that's who he was he?" the Reaper asked.
"Yes," said the killer. "Why are you protecting him?"
The Reaper looked at the dead man. "Maybe I knew him in another life," said the Reaper.
"Who are you?" asked the killer curiously.
"I'd rather not say," said the Reaper. "Perhaps I'm his bodyguard."
"What use is a dead alien? Let me dispose of him."
"No, I'd rather you didn't hack him up."
"Misguided loyalty."
"No," said the Reaper, who disliked zealots like this killer, who he was tired of and knew he knew too much to live.
But the Reaper could not do anything yet. If he removed his weapon, Fred would lose his head. They both knew they were in a stalemate. If one of them removed their weapon, the other would strike. They stood like that for an hour, chatting, neither flinching, waiting for the other to grow tired to no avail. 5 hours passed and they grew tired. They were hardly able to keep their weapons' arms still. They grew shaky in the 6th hour. The killer grew drowsy and dropped his axe and fell to the floor. The robed man hit him on the head with the shaft of his scythe, knocking him unconscious. The Reaper walked over to the dead man, touched his chest, and was absorbed into the corpse, which promptly healed Fred, who came back to life. Fred sat up, disoriented, and saw the killer, knowing sadly he must die. No one could know about his afflictions of having a grim Reaper as a soul, and his dying and coming back to life would bring down his empire. He felt that a dead man or a living dead man should not be emperor. Fred slew his killer and dismembered him with the skill of a coroner, which he had been in a former life. He next disposed of the body and prayed that he would not get caught for his crimes. Hoping he could just live his normal life again, he left the area and went home.